G'day, doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. We'll just wait for a few people to jump on, see how that goes. NRL 360 finishing up soon. We had Stephen Crichton and Connor Tracy on there. Welcome to everyone. Come say hello on the chat. We'll be talking about quite a bit tonight. Big preview of the Souths game, who have named one of their strongest sides for a few weeks. We'll see how that transpires. A lot to talk about with Lachlan Galvin. Take the emotion out of it. Listen to what Gus Gould's actually said. And we'll also decipher, what the Tigers have done, which has been very, very smart and very strategic. And also what the Bulldogs have done. And it's important, I think, people have a real listen to this and be embracing of whatever happens. G'day, JD. Welcome, mate. Hello, Elaine. How are you? Hope you're well. And g'day, Jamie Teasdale. Welcome back, legend. Right, we can sort of start now, guys. Let's talk about Lachlan Galvin, the elephant in the room. Will he be a Bulldog? I have no idea. But I think people best get prepared. Welcome, Sayed. Welcome. I think people best get prepared that it could be a possibility. And whilst there's a lot of people who are going to, be very, very emotional about this sort of thing. In fact, I've written a huge article that I hope to get published in relation to the matter. It may or may not. We will see. I think that we best get prepared. But we should also understand that whatever decisions our club make are made in the best decisions of the club. But that doesn't mean they're always going to make the right decision, because nobody's perfect and people get things wrong all the time. So I've got a little bit of what Phil Gould said in relation to Galvin. It goes for about 2 minutes. We'll show that at some point. But it's important that we not just look at... Initially, when I heard the news, I'm like, Lachlan Galvin's a mercenary. He's money hungry. His manager's a joke. And I'm afraid that Phil Gould wants him. And look, I think there's a lot of truth around the reporting on this. I think there's truth from all sides on it. And that's unprecedented. I actually believe what Buzz Rothfield reported about, how Richo went about trying to keep Galvin at the Tigers. And I also believe there's some actual... Galvin and his management have done the Tigers a huge favour in letting them know that they're not going to be there. I don't necessarily believe this has to be a situation where we have a player and their manager, even though that manager's got form, obviously, where they have to be, absolutely targeted. But I'll explain the mastery of what Shane Richardson done as a CEO and how, he has definitely put his club first, and using the mantra of club first of the Bulldogs has made this, if the Bulldogs are interested, and this has been something that Gus has been hoping for or planning for, the way that Richardson has handled this situation has definitely is going to make it a very hard thing for the Bulldogs, their fans, and it could be very disruptive, and it could be a real negative thing for our club, the whole circus around it. And I'll explain why. Sayed, before I get into it, please tell me we're not chasing Galvin. We have so many boys up and coming. What would it mean for boys like Woods? Well, I'll explain all of that. We'll talk a lot about that. But I think it's important we look at all the facts first and do that as succinctly as possible. I didn't actually get to watch NRL 360. Wouldn't load for some reason. I think when we have Bulldogs on KO doesn't run at its most optimum because it's definitely, I think NRL 60 viewership would have been at one of its highest tonight. I think he's going to Para. He well and truly might be, mate. Being Isaac's the cousin of Mitchell, being a Parramatta junior, definitely on the cards. This is more about us as a fan base not losing our shit, because it's important we have people that come in and have a balanced view on things and don't just lose our shit. Try and understand the big picture. And I'm not saying, you have to agree with everything or you have to, but it's about support. And I support this club. Whoever wears that jersey, however it comes to be, they become somebody that I adore while they have that jersey on. And if they do great things in that jersey, they are remembered forever. And that goes all the way through the fan base. Unless they, run off out of their contract in the middle of the night and shit like that, that can affect the legacy. G'day, Scotty. Welcome. Do we have any players who's with Isaac Moses? That's a good question, mate, and something I probably should have had a look at. But there are some links to Lachlan Galvin that I could have put in the headlines to get more people to come and watch. But Adam Hartigan used to be a school teacher, from all reports. And you can have huge links there. And Adam Hartigan's a really good person. And if his family and that kid value him highly, he's a recruitment manager for the Bulldogs. And a really good one. So, and a good human being from all reports. So this doesn't mean Lachlan Galvin is after a huge contract. He may not be. The very fact, if you look at it from one point of view, my initial reaction was the same as most fans. Oh, I'm sick of these mercenaries. Dylan Brown's contract, it's ruined the market. What about Toby Sexton? Why didn't we sign Toby last year? I'm with all that. My emotion goes there straight up. Then I watch the players as individuals. I go back and watch it. I have a look at everything. Why would we want this kid? And is he necessarily the bad guy in this? Is Isaac Moses the bad guy in this? Because what Richo's done by coming out and saying he's not playing for us, we're not entering a war for his services, we've made him an unprecedented offer. They said they don't want to even talk to us about it. They want out. He actually never said they wanted out. He basically said, we're cutting ties. He's with us until the end of his contract, hasn't said he wants to leave. We're not letting him leave regardless, which they will. It's just a power play. But what he's done is he's galvanized, and pardon the pun, I'll say it a few times, he's galvanized that culture of the Tigers with one press release. They've got a lot of players that are committed to the cause. They've got a lot of really good juniors coming through. They've got a heap of experience in their halves, and they can move Adam Dewey into the 6 at any point. They've got young halves that had high raps on them. I think Jaden Sullivan potentially comes back to that club next year as well. I think he's on a loan deal. Someone might need to correct that. Their fan base are all going to turn on Galvin. The fan base are going to support the club even more. The players are going to galvanise over it. They're going to be like, well, if you don't love our club, leave our club. We don't want to be a part of it. The playing group. Now, and that playing group's going to speak to their mates who are in other teams as well. So Galvin's signature elsewhere becomes a priority for other clubs. So that's not just the culture wars that you battle within your own club. That's recruitment wars 101. That's some Gus Gould shit right there. And the fact of the matter is, by Richo going out and being strong, saying, well, he's leaving, so we get time, we're going to move on, we're going to start developing our players If we need to buy someone on the market, we'll buy them. We're going to have the money there that we would have spent on this guy. Look, I think they knew he was leaving anyway, and this was all part of the theatre of it. I think Richardson's pretty smart, and he's like, I'm going to take this, and Galvin and his manager have said, well, don't bother. I think he knew they were going to do that. The kid's been wanted out for a long time. If he's wanted out from that club, maybe it's completely genuine. Maybe it's not about the money. It's just with the timing of Dylan Brown's offer and shit like that. It's creating this overinflated market, which is driving clubs and driving commentators and fans a little bit mental. And that'll lead us to discussions about Toby Sexton and our halves academy. You know, we've got 4 of the best halves in their age group, all waiting in the wings, and we've got one already in the 17 in Bailey Haywood, you know, and an unsigned Toby Sexton, who the majority of our fan base would have believed deserved an upgraded contract last year, and many after our start are like, where is his signature? So I'm going to explain that a little bit more as well. And we'll have a look at what everyone's got to say. Paul Kent reckons he's going to Para. He probably is, mate. He probably is. But it's best to be prepared. And also, not just write this kid off. He's a young kid. He said he wasn't happy there last year, right? If he's been angling for a release and he's contracted to 2026, right? So he's not available till 2027. And he's given that club 18 months to prepare for life without him. You know, it could be just, you don't know. It could be some players there that said some shit to him. It could have been that he was a bit of a dickhead and he can't live that scenario down. But you watch them on the field winning, they look happy winning together, as most people do. And maybe you'll regret it. Maybe the Tigers go on and become a real force under Benji Marshall, one of the best human beings to ever live in the game, right? You know, I don't think it's about being coached by Benji. I think that might have been something that come out as an excuse, but I don't know. He could be the biggest dickhead on the planet. You don't know. But what I'm saying is have a bloody open mind about it. Have an open mind that if he does come, well, there's nothing we can do about it except destabilise the club and start being idiots. But in saying that, this is the other conundrum as well. Just having him linked to our club and not signing Toby Sexton was a genius move by Richardson. Even if Gus Gould has no intention of signing Lachlan Galvin, but keeps himself there purely to drive up the cost, which he can do. All this stuff about, you know, he's exposed the rules of the NRL by using his public voice to sign a player or get a player. That's bullshit. If he's going to be interested in signing this player, he's going to talk to him. And it happens all the time, whether it's within the rules or not. They're all dodging the rules and they all know it and everyone knows it. He doesn't have to say, you know, praise this kid continually and basically say he's obsessed with him in order to somehow breach the rules of the game. Now, I believe strongly that it will cause us a lot more headaches it's causing us more headaches having him linked to the club because of the likes of Sexton's not signed, because of the likes you've got Mitch Woods there. For Mitch Woods, I don't think it affects his progression into the NRL. And then you got to look at, what about Matt Burton? What about Cassius Tia? What about Alex Conti? You know, Joey O'Neill. Look, we're going to have to either have one of those or two of those players, you know, progress into other positions and come through, you know, that different angle. Tia could come through as a centre. Tia can come through as a 13. He can come through as a 9. Joey O'Neill could come through as a small lock if he keeps working on his defence. I think Mitch Woods, though, will come through as a 7. And I think they will take their time. I don't think there's a big issue there. And the other thing you've also got to give credit to this Bulldogs culture at the moment, and I don't know if a signing of Lachlan Galvin will threaten that, but look at all the players that have come to the Bulldogs that have been starting players or in the best 17s of their clubs and have come to the Dogs or have come to our club expecting to play NRL, and our youngsters have said no. Ryan Sutton, Tom Amone, Andrew Davey, Jackson Torpenay thought he was next man up. So did half the fan base. Raymond Fatala-Mariner had to leave. Right? Every single player in the club. Chris Patolo. All these players moved on. Where are they? What are they doing? Right? The youngsters in our club said, no, we're going to outwork you. We're going to outperform you. And people they brought to the club like Preston and Carraz, 100% changed the culture. Now, for our fan base, we see Toby Sexton as a winner. And our club only understands winning. From the 80s to the 90s, decade after decade, to that period of, where we were last and hitting wooden spoons, we didn't handle it and we didn't understand it. And our boards and administrations made many mistakes trying to appease, overthrowing of the board. They made mistakes trying to keep their jobs, which is what our constitution can do. Yet I still love it, right? There's good and bad with everything. You can't have it all the one way. There's good and bad with everything, right? But when I'm sitting there and can see the pros and the cons of this, Toby Sexton, to me, with the fans, we see him as he came to our club after we lost 66-0. We won the next game, albeit against a really, depleted South Sydney outfit. We won another game. We looked really good while he was on the field against the Broncos in Josh Reynolds' last game before he got injured, and they ran away with it. Toby Sexton then doesn't play the first 10 rounds. I think we win 4 of those matches without him. Since he's come back in the side, we've won nearly every game. Burton's gone on and not being available through injury and also through being 18th man and rep duties and stuff. We've won with Toby. Toby, we have associated in the same breath as the coach and with winning. And his defense is now on point. He's asking the right questions 99% of the time. And he's doing the job that we want our halfback to do. But he's unsigned. And that poses problems when Lachlan Galvin is linked to our club, because the fan base then starts to say, well, Gus Gould's got stars in his eyes, but he can't see what's right in front of him. We need to love the one we're with, potentially. But then I look at other factors as well. I go, okay, I've been talking about Toby taking on the line and doing it well and setting us up for the next play, giving us greater variation, helping with our attack. But he can't break the line. Just like Hutchison could barely break it, and if he did, he'd fall over or, he'd fuck it up, throw a bad pass, whatever. But he knew what to do. He just couldn't do it consistently. Toby's been threatening to break that line, and I've been praying for him to break it. And he's got a couple of line break assists and a couple of try assists in those wins. And his kicking's been on point. His defense has been phenomenal. Just what you want in our team and our culture. But what he hasn't done, he hasn't made that break. There hasn't been enough, line break assists and try assists. Sure, we do it as a team. And maybe there will be the moments that we see Toby Sexton do that throughout this year. And we're undefeated. Lachlan Galvin, as a 19-year-old in the NRL, if he was at Canterbury, he probably hasn't even debuted yet. He's making line breaks for fun. He plays a heads-up game that I don't think Toby's capable of. Now, is that worth more to us? Or is the pursuit of that going to be more detrimental to us? I don't know. Lockie's pretty energetic in defence. Is he after the money? I don't believe it is. Is it because there was some things unresolved that they were never going to be able to resolve at the Tigers? That's what I think the issue is, not pinpointing exactly what it was. I don't believe it's got anything to do with Benji Marshall, unless Benji did or said something that him and his family didn't value or didn't agree with, which I find hard to believe. I don't know. But what I do know is that the youngsters in our club, with the culture we've got, don't care about the names, don't care about what other people are on. Sure, they do when they're in Harold Matts and one of the players says, I got a contract, might send some rumblings. Or if they're an SG Ball, or if they're before that, they're waiting to hear if they got a contract and they see their mates have got one and they don't. It's hard. It's hard on these kids. And it's even harder when they're so close they can taste it. And then all of a sudden someone strolls in, like a Carla Lawapu, going back. Or someone strolls in like a Lachlan Galvin, who not only would put shutters through the youth, but the players that are there now. Does Galvin develop into a dynamic six? He's quite tall. He's got a lot of bulk to put on. Does he hold us back? Does it knock us back? Does it knock us off our trajectory? Because if it does, the fan base are going to tear the place down. I know it, which is why I'm here right now saying, chill. We've got to chill out. What will be, will be. You can say that in a religious context. You can say it in a normal, in any context. This kid is only young, so if he has had issues, he can make up for them. I think the Tigers have been really smart in galvanising their club and their fan base by handling it the way they did. From a recruitment wars perspective, it could destabilise their competition this year. Anything that brings down other clubs is good for another club. They could be all nice about it all they want. You hear Gus praising clubs all the time. But if they fall over, oh well. Might not be good for the game, but it might be good for us right now. Will it help us win? Maybe. Is winning everything at Canterbury? Yes, it is. That's what our fan base knows. That's why there'll be 70,000 out there. There'll be a lot of South supporters too, but the Dogs fans are there. And they've got the drums ready. And, that'll lead us into talking about this preview. But let's look at this perspective that the manager, Shane Richardson of the West Tigers, has put his club first and done the exact right thing by his club. And potentially the manager, Isaac Moses, and Lachlan Galvin, the player, have done the right thing by the Tigers if they have no intention of staying, by letting them know 18 months early. And that then becomes a problem because the perception is always going to hit Galvin and his manager in the head. Most people are going to take the side of the Tigers club who have been on their knees, who have had 3 wooden spoons, have been a nutcase, have bought some really good players, are playing a good game of footy, and their fans are getting a bit of success, which they deserve. Right? So if we're sitting there looking at this kid and his manager are going to take some bullets. Now, Gus Gould's happy to take bullets as well. And his family's, and the kid's family's going to take some bullets and some slander. They're going to be hated. And opposition clubs like ours, who potentially might be his destination, most of our fan base are going to say, fuck off, we don't want you. I won't be saying that. I'll be saying, well, if the club believes it's the best thing for our club, that's exactly what I'm going to support, whether I like it or not, because I love this club. But as I said, not every decision is the right decision. And we remember the wrong decisions. We'll talk about Liam. We'll talk about Mortimer. We'll talk about the Hughes brothers, Josh Reynolds, forever. But we'll also talk about Jonathan Thurston leaving our club. We'll never forget that, ever. We'll never forget it. We see that as the reason why we didn't go on to ongoing success. Although he only made two more grand finals after that and won one match. One grand final, I should say. So my point is, the positives of this is that people want to play for the Dogs. We're in the conversation. We're linked to every good player. And the Dogs have to manage that. And if good players come on the market, and if your CEO who you've trusted to get us this far sees that this player is the best kid to come on the open market in a very, very long time, you listen to it. But you also listen to him when he says he's not at his $1 million contract stage, and nor should he think he is. He should reject he said he should reject any offer. That was said as well, until it's closer to the time so he knows the right club to be with to get him more money in the future, rather than taking too much now and not being, in a situation where, where the fanfare, it's one of those things, because either way, he's going to have to deal with a lot of scrutiny now, even more, before he gets a paycheck. And as I said, the club that he potentially goes to, the fans of that club aren't going to be happy. Now, people are saying a lot about Parramatta. It makes the most sense. Isaac's the cousin of, Mitchell Moses. Mitchell is a really good halfback. Lockie goes there and slots straight in. He's a Parramatta junior. And I think their fan base will be a lot more welcoming than ours, or anyone else's for that matter. There's also obviously the other links with Seabold, the coach of Manly, and all that sort of stuff. Either way you look at it, it's going to be, I think that's the best pathway for him to go to. The easiest pathway is to go to the Eels, if that's their consideration. But I don't think they're worried about the bullets that they're going to cop. And you shouldn't. But I think the Bulldogs club could derail itself just by being linked to this kid. And that's what scares the shit out of me. Is if we start losing games without, we're winning games, Toby's playing well, then this kid gets linked to us and the noise grows. Gus doesn't rule it out, right? Doesn't rule out the possibility of, if he says we're not going to sign him, we won't. But if he leaves it, we've got other plans and blah, 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 and still keeps hope there, or the potential there, and we start losing games, people are going to link that to the players losing faith and worrying about this kid coming to the club. Now, I think we're bigger and better than that, and I think it won't actually be the reason, but our fans will draw that line. I am confident of it, and I hope they don't, but they will. They'll be like, because Gus was going to sign this Galvin, or might sign this Galvin, and hasn't signed Sexton, we're losing games now. It's derailed our season. And this is exactly what Richardson wanted. Because do you think he hasn't heard Gus Gould talking about Galvin in the public for the last year and a half? Knowing that Galvin has said that he didn't want to stay at the club? Richardson going out there and saying they've got the best spine in the competition? All this sort of shit. He's not stupid. I think he's done the right thing for his club. I think they'll be better for it. not worse off. And I also think that Galvin and his manager have done the right thing by the Tigers as well by saying that we're not staying. If their decision was made, they've done the right thing. And we'll see with the offer that he gets. If he goes to Canterbury, I can guarantee you Gus is not going to pay him more than Stephen Crichton. But I think they might upgrade Crichton to make it happen. Let's have a look. Sorry, everyone. Lots of comments. JD says, I'm club for us. When it comes to players, clubs are not loyal at all anymore. They'll get rid of a player when it suits. The players have to look after themselves and their family. Very true. G'day, Scary79. Scotty says, evening. Timmy, good evening. Legendary champion, go the mighty dogs. Evening, Timmy. Dave says, howdy. G'day, Dave. Good to see you again, mate. I think Sexton is a great player and he's only going to get better with time. And as you said, we have so many good players coming through the lower grades. 100%. But still, when I look at Sexton, I look at it as a solid player that in the right system with the right talent around them could potentially win a comp. But he could also be seen as a player that might get you to that role, but can he get you the win? And that's yet to be proven. And I think the more I looked at players like Chad Townsend and I said, never got excited by Chad. He won a comp with Cronulla, right? I think Toby's got more upside than Chad Townsend. But I don't think Toby is ever going to be in the top 5 halfbacks in the comp. I think he'll go close, but I don't think he'll ever be in the frame to play Origin or anything like that. And look, if as long as he's at the Bulldogs, I hope he proves me wrong in that regard. 100%. But Dogs don't need the best player in each position to win comps. We never have. You know, we've had sometimes had the top 2. You know, you had Mortimer and Lamb versus Kenny and Sterling, right? But we had Sherwin, second or third best in New South Wales, had a really tough time. We had the Patton Luke, the General Luke Patton. I was going to say the Patton Luke General. Lots of good players in our time that weren't making the Origin sides, and that helped us. Of course it did. Got us higher up the ladder. And a lot of fans, you know, when I start talking about Origin-bound Bulldogs, they don't want to know about it because they don't want it. We're so selfish as a fan base. I can tell you that much. We don't want to see players play Origin. We want our best players to play every game, and we want to win comps. You know, Origin. We want Origin teams to win as well. And I'm not speaking for everyone, obviously, but there's a lot more people who aren't that happy about players going to play Origin, especially when they're 18th man and don't get used. Scotty, the more I think about it, the more I think we should stick with Toby. Look, I'm a Toby Sexton fan the whole way. When I look at the two players, though, and what they bring, and what I think Galvin will supersede him, and it's not because Gus Gould believes that. I'm watching this kid break down defences and play off the front foot against some good defences and in a side that was going nowhere. You know, even in the trial, I know it was our reserve grade side, but he proved he was the best player on the field at that point. You know, he was responsible for 3 breaks down the right edge against our left edge defence, right? Young players don't do that. Come into first grade and start making line breaks from the halves position. Plus putting them, and he's quite an energetic and, you know, gutsy defender as well. Like, he's a good player. And they think he's going to be one of the best. And if Gus says he's the greatest he's seen at that age, well, who's to say Gus is wrong? But it's a funny game, rugby league, as he always says. And where does he end up? It doesn't always mean that they end up going to the heights they're supposed to go. as Gus said, and I've said it plenty of times too. Obviously, here and watching and listening to commentators and stuff, I'm just repeating a lot of shit that I've heard. Really, that's what we all do. With a bit of insight there, and anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm like, this kid Galvin is pretty bloody good. But there's kids that weren't that good in reps, that weren't playing for New South Wales Origin team in under 19s, that go on to be multiple premiership winners and some of the best in their position. It happens. Not everyone develops at the same level. Dave, I don't think Sexton is on the out. Maybe Burton. Swap deal. Oh, I shouldn't laugh at it. Burton's not on the way out. Burton singing the team song. I felt that his performances since Sexton's been there has been quite good. Look, I think it's a situation, really, when it comes down to Toby Sexton, the club haven't tapped him on the shoulder. Now, our club has extended and tapped people on the shoulder they've wanted to keep. I think Toby is a scenario where they think, we saw this with Jake Averillo as well, playing really well in 2023, probably his best season, and he got a really good contract out of it with the Dolphins. I think Toby's going to want a 3-year deal, and I think he can actually command, based on the market, over 700,000 a season, no doubt. I don't think the Dogs are prepared to do that, and if they're thinking they're only going to offer him a 1-year extension or a 2-year deal, I don't think it's the money side of things. I think it's the size of the contract, the length of it. They might just not come to the party and keep it under wraps and not talk about it and try not to focus on it and let Toby dictate the terms. And if Toby comes back and said, I can leave and go elsewhere, what do you want to do? They might be like, okay, well, you can go. Or things may change. But from what I've seen in what's happened and actions, it's like picking the team each week. There's a reason that, on this podcast, you're going to see that team being named very, very close. We're going to talk about maybe getting one position wrong, maximum per week. Most weeks getting it right, because Serrato has become very predictable. And it's become quite transparent who's leading the race in the support of players. Someone made a comment, someone that I think is very, very good analyst. How can we play Salmon and Haywood and Mann? I'm like, well, they did the first 2 games. They sort of think, they must think Saluka Fafita's cemented his spot. No, he won't. If Kickout comes back and Harry Hayes was available, Saluka Fafita gets dropped. And so does Todd. Until stated otherwise. Especially for the first 10 rounds. First 10 rounds, these things happen. Right? After that, things start to change. You have players which they know are on their way out. They know they've got to develop certain ones they want to keep. They're looking at people they're not sure about, so they give them a run. All that comes into it. But first 10 rounds, it's pretty much this is the plan A. And it's going to take some pretty good, either some injuries or some poor form or some really good form for that to change. And it's been quite easy to predict what's been going to happen. And we've got it right here most of the time. G'day, Mondi. Welcome. Burton for Galvin. No, thank you. Well, I'm on that train as well. But, a lot of people see Burton as a future lock as well. Big guy. Step off both feet. Could cause a lot of trouble in the middle. And when he sees a gap, he runs for it. They've created a monster. Why do you need an agent to sign a contract? You don't need a real estate agent to buy a home. Very good comment, Ross. And probably one of the things that Gus talks about, especially with young kids, he'd be like, he would rather just deal with the parents than deal with the managers, because the managers half the time don't tell the kids the truth, and some are really good, by the way, and some have been with these kids for a long time and have nothing but their best interests at heart and are trusted by the parents and by the clubs and by the player, more importantly. But things that can always break down, and money changes people. It does. People go to accepting whatever they can get and being grateful and loyal and loving. The money gets wired through to their bank account, and all of a sudden, I can get better. I can do better. We experienced that. I'm sure a lot of people. Anyway, I won't get into that, to be honest. You just have to watch White Lotus season 3 to see the masseuse and how she changed when she got some money. Very good. I've seen that happen, male and female, numerous times. But anyway, Mbai, if he comes, he plays 13. Maybe if he comes, he plays 13. Definitely. And there's a pathway for these guys to do that. Our academy is skilling these guys to have a pathway so that if their preferred position that they want, and I've heard the stories, the frustration for young kids, just to take it on another angle, where they're sitting there and they're, watching their fullbacks, their kids who have been the best fullback in every grade they've been in, who love that position. Their favourite stars are fullbacks, right? Or 5'8" or whatever they are, right? And then they get into a system, and the coaches start saying, you know what? You're a 6. No, you're a 4. Actually, we see you as a number 9. The Broncos did that with Oluwapu. We see you as a 9. He couldn't handle it. He's out there in the halves where the most money is. You make the most money in the halves. You don't have to, you don't get cauliflower ears playing the halves most of the time. Although you get smashed by big forwards and that. Or they get told they're a winger. Or they get told they're going to be a forward. It doesn't matter what it is. These kids have to deal with all that stuff, and it's not easy. And they've got their family and their friends and their managers. They're all sitting there and they're telling them the same things, Oh, why aren't you playing fullback? Oh, you're better than that kid there. For most of the kids, they're just happy to play. It's a privilege to play. They do it for the love of it. But for some, they're the shining hope for their family. This is them and their family's chance to improve their quality of life for some people. I look at these are the big picture things you got to look at. So it doesn't matter what your background or where you're from. Everyone's got a different story to tell. And these players, whether they're, at the top of their game or just starting, they're humans. And whilst I can be just as critical as anyone, especially if they're in another team, and just as dismissive of all that sort of shit, I do draw a line at my own club. And I definitely understand the pressure it puts on a system when kids are in our system and they want to, progress, and a player comes into your system that sort of just goes above everyone that's there. But the good thing about our culture, as I said, is what we're seeing is these kids like Harry Hayes and Bailey Hayward and Jack Todd, Lipboy Hotboy, they all said no. Jacob Preston, he come as a kid from Flegg, played a bit of New South Wales Cup. He said, no, I'm going to get in the team first. Jacob Carraz gave up a top 30 to be on a train and trial. You know how hard it is to do that? And watching Carraz in every game he's played the Newcastle Knights since, pretty much, he's been, one of our best. You could say that about most games, to be honest. But these kids, they put it on the line. They take the challenge, and that's our culture now. Tom Amone's coming. I've said it a few times. Harry Hayes and that just said so. Who's he? Good bloke. He's now not in the team. Anyway, I've talked a lot about this, guys. I think we need to be prepared for the fact it could happen. If it does happen, the club's got a plan and they'll manage it from within. And if people and players are and whatever else fall out the side, it wasn't meant to be. That's how I look at it. But I 100% understand how it can frustrate the hell out of us fans, and it can frustrate the players there and the families, and how it could humanly really disable our club and really take us off our trajectory if we allow shit like that to sway us from where we're going. So I just hope if the players are out there, I didn't get to watch Critter and Tracy tonight, but I'm sure they would have been asked the question, and hopefully they just said, yeah, if he wants to come to the Dogs, great. He'll be competing with some really good bloody players that I trust. Maybe Critter says, no, I don't want him to come, and if he does, I'm going to go play number 6 with my old mate Romy and with Taruva and the like. Wouldn't that throw a spanner in the works? Thanks, Soddy. Good point. Everyone wants to play for the Dogs now. 100% Dave. Sexton deserves a contract extension. He deserves one, and he'll get one. Whether it's with the Bulldogs or not is yet to be confirmed. And I'm only going to just back what they do. I want him to get a contract. I think it puts a lot of faith in him. I think it puts faith in the system. I think it puts faith in the fan base. I think it's the easiest path for our club to take. I honestly believe that. I don't think it disrupts the players within the system like Woods and Tia, O'Neill. I don't think it does. Haywood. I think it just forces them to, become sharper and tougher, to grind against the iron sharpening the iron. Galvin coming and letting Sexton go, that could throw a spanner in the works. That I'm not sure if that's a headache I want, but if the club says it's a headache they want, I turn up, I've only membership. I'm just as happy. I just hope that everyone's on the same bloody wavelength as far as the club on the inside. Because as long as the Bulldogs keep winning, fans aren't going to give a shit. But I do worry about us winning a comp with the player who's leaving again with another player coming in. That does worry me. But I would, I'd sell me left nut to win a comp too. So there you go. Yeah, he has worked his ass off, mate. And defensively, he's been absolutely phenomenal. We need to have some integrity. I don't think integrity comes into it, Scotty. I really don't. I think the conversations they have, they make promises to kids all the time. Promises which they, it's their prerogative to change their mind. Things change. It happens all the time. Kids will be loyal and say, we'll have an offer on the table for more money to go elsewhere. I'm talking about kids. I'm talking about kids that aren't even signed up to NRL contracts or top 30s. They could be offered, a $60,000 contract plus all these promises and a guaranteed spot. Or they stick with the Dogs for another year for, half that and told that they're very likely that they'll get a spot and then they don't get offered it. It happens all the time at all clubs. You only hear about it in the clubs that are losing, though. They're the only clubs you hear about it, or clubs where, it makes if the media are going to get lots of views, and it sort of sells advertising. And clubs like the Bulldogs, the Eels, and the Tigers, always good for that. Always. G'day, Bearded Tech. Welcome, mate. We need to keep Sexy. He's been playing hard and growing his skills. Yeah, it's a common denominator. We all believe that. Big crowd expected. I'm driving up from Melbourne. Oh, good on you, buddy. I'm going to go into the Good Friday game with some mates. They're saying maybe 60, 70,000. Yeah, well, it's pretty much sold out almost. They've had to open the top tiers. And they're selling 4,000 tickets at $10 a go. Scary says, I think myself that Galvin would be a great buy, but I don't want all this talk to upset the apple cart. The Thurston had to go after what happened in Coffs Harbour, and after that, I never missed him. Well, I think I've talked a lot about Coffs Harbour before, and the official story, the story from the Bulldogs, it's far from what happened. So people think they know, and some do know. And all I'll say is that I don't hate any of our players for what happened that night, and I don't hate the people involved. There was some shit that went down, and when adults talk about it, it's I've got a daughter, and that would be my greatest fear, that she's hanging out with a bunch of footballers in a small country town late at night on the piss. It'd be the biggest fear of my life. But guess what? I'm sure there's no father who feels differently. And it happens all the time. And a lot of fathers know that sometimes they were in places like that, and similar things happen. But anyway, I'm getting off track. But you just got to have an open fucking mind and listen to as many facts as you can, and understand that sometimes these scenarios are nowhere near what they're reported. So it's a very tough thing. And this girl involved in Coffs Harbour, she has a name, and she has people who know the truth, and she knows the truth as well. So there you go. And there's a lot of people who know her. It's, I don't think Jonathan Thurston. I love Jonathan Thurston as a player. I think he's a good bloke, and I think that it'd be unfair to say that was all him, like many people do, because it wasn't. He's not $1 million player yet. No, he's not. And just because he's rejected a $6 million deal over 5 years, plus extending his 25 and 26 contract, so it was 5 years after 2026, would have kept him at the club until 2031. Doesn't mean that he's going to be asking for $1 million, but we will see what happens with that. He was definitely a para junior, 100%. Galvin's father paid out the $5,000 for the release to go to Wests. Well, there you go. G'day, Bulldogs fans and others. Welcome, Mark. I really thought the Sextons would have been re-signed during the bye. Yeah, I was hoping for it, Timmy. I think I made a comment about that as well. Definitely was hoping for that, and this is throwing another spanner into the works. But this, as far as Toby's career goes, this can also be good for him as well, that a player like Galvin's on the market. Because the club, he's going to be purchased by somebody, and for good money. He's going to get a good deal. Is it at the Bulldogs? I think the length of contract could be a stifling point, which is why Toby's able to sit there and sort of just find out where his manager is able to talk with other clubs and whatever else. And does that mean the Bulldogs come in with a late offer? I don't think the Bulldogs will fight unless he's like, look, if you give me a 2-year deal, I'll fucking stay, But I don't know. This is just my thoughts, my opinion. They're not even an opinion. They're just, just hypothesizing what could happen. Is that the right word? Shifty didn't make many line breaks. He made a few, but you're 100% right. But he had all the skills. But he was also good at, running around. He could change the point of attack. And he created a lot of line breaks, mate. Shifty Sherwin, they called him Shifty for a reason. And I tell you what, one of the best halfbacks this club's ever had. And the club did the right thing to sign him to a 5-year deal. and Thurston was let go. For 30 grand extra, we could have kept Thurston. Sexton's still pretty young though, mate. Plenty of room for improvement in him. 100%. He's only 24. That's what I mean. I look at Sexton. I start looking at our squad in 2028. And the reason I do that is because that's what Gus says his job is. What do we look like 4 years from now? That's what it is. So what Gus is doing, he's got all these players. So there'll be Leo Thompson, Satili Tupanua, Matt Burton's up for contract 27, same time as Crichton. Reed Marnie the year before. They're going to have, by the end of this year, I'd say they will have 10 to 12 players extended to 2028. And the idea will be to have the best young talent assembled that they can find, which they're still looking as part of that top 30 by that year. And by that time, a player like Matt Burton would have played between 150 and 200 matches and still only be 28, 29 years of age. Still young as a half and could potentially start moving into the forwards. A player like Critter, same age, 28 years of age, likely to be moving into a spine role on the money we're going to have him on. And, you know, you have these players that have played a heap of matches that are still young, got plenty of games in them around some of the best young talent that the rugby league world has got. That's the idea, hopefully, through our pathway systems and through buying talent and young talent, just like they got Burton. Having those players all assembled together is the name of the game. And by having that, you've got ongoing success. I think the players that are there now, it's obvious to say, but most of them won't be there in 2027. I know we had some stability leading into this year, and I believe next year we'll have quite a bit of stability as well. But if you're looking at the numbers of the salary, you know, the players that are signed, they are next year's looking like a big turnover year, right? And I think we'll see a big name or two leave the club that we've become accustomed to, and this year, unfortunately, it's looking like Sexton could be one of those players that we link to us becoming more successful and helping us on our trajectory, who me and many of the fans would agree would take us further if they gave him a 2 or 3 year deal without really disrupting the pathway of too many of them young guys, in my opinion. But if the club thinks there's a player better suited for that, or that he is going to, you know, it'd be a longer term, it'd be better for our club long term to get some of these other youngsters in our club already into that role sooner. Well, that's what I'm going to run with. I'm just going to let them run with that, you know. But we start losing, falling off the trajectory. All of a sudden, there's people out there who are going to start, you know, 100 signatures, whatever else, short memories, and the media will have a field day. And I'm not, and this is, I know I'm sitting there probably, you know, what's the word when you start catastrophizing? What's the fucking word? I care about this club. I don't want to see it fall off. I want to see us keep going up, and I want us to be successful every year, like everyone else. And anyone who destabilizes our club, I have a problem with it. If Tigers, do you keep him for 2 years? I don't think the Tigers will, no. I think it's become untenable, and I think the media will say that as well, and have probably already said it. On players playing Origin, you need Origin players to win comps. 100% you do, my friend. Can't have your cake and eat it too. That's it. If you're the Tigers, do you keep for 2 years? No. You plan, and they've already started by dropping him. Timmy says Sexton needs to be re-signed for another 3 years on 800 and 900 a season. Needs a strong word. I think I can agree with that. I can agree with that statement, Timmy, and I can agree with anyone who supports it. But if the club doesn't matter what I think. Look what Galvin did against the Broncos. Gus said that about a few players. He has, and he's been right about the majority of them. But look, Gus has also said he's been wrong. He loved a player called Matt Singh, but he said he was no good, you know. He was after some other player, and he's like, who's this hopeless kid? Basically wrote him off early, and he ended up being one of his favourite players of all time. Funny game it is, brother. Galvin to Parramatta. G'day, John. John Pierre, winner of the Serratos competition for this year. Hope you enjoyed the merch, mate. I know you would have and have. Yeah, you can always go back and watch it, mate. Mark says Galvin to Parramatta, which I'm very happy about. Well, we don't know, Mark. And I'll tell you what, you've made a lot more predictions than me, and I've been right about a lot more predictions than you. So that says something. And it's all on record too. G'day, Abraha. Welcome, mate. I would not be surprised if Gould signs Galvin and puts him in reserves, probably personally coach him and then bring him back in the first grade at age 22 when Burton's contract finishes. There's lots of scenarios, mate, that we can come up with, and I'm not going to discount anything in relation to that. My only issue is if we start losing, this will be blamed for it. And I know we're going to lose, you know, and this will lead us. We've got to start talking about this big game on Friday. In my opinion, the biggest game of the season. And I think the Dogs, it'd be one of these games where we could be vulnerable. Because I know for a fact that that playing group want it even more than we do as fans. And we know how much we want this game. Toby's handling himself really well, even just after DCE speculation. Well, DCE's not coming to the club, mate. People keep saying he is. I think if that happens, that'd be even worse. That'd be a worse scenario. Because we just don't like him. And DCE is actually, you know, people have come out and talked about how he's very, you know, he puts himself and his family first, and he has every right to do that. But in the game of rugby league, it doesn't pass the pub test always. And sometimes you can put your family in that first by putting your teammates first. And many people subscribe to that. And he hasn't always seemed to be that person. Widler reasons. If you have a really good system, you can win premierships every year. Well, we've seen that. And that's what we're trying to do, build the right system. We're winning on Good Friday, mark my words. I hope you're right, mate. Oh, thanks for joining, Scary. Much appreciated, mate. Thanks for joining the channel. I really appreciate that. Anyone else wants to, you know, look, it does help. There is a bit of money spent on this to make it look better and shit, but it's money I'm willing to bloody spend, you know what I mean? And there's ads in that now, like which pop up. You watch an ad, it helps out as well. So there you go. I'm fine myself watching ads and buying shit, which is definitely not what I wanted to fucking do. Couple of little things I'm like, oh, that looks all right. With the AI bloody commentary. Unbelievable. Get sucked in like an idiot. Don't jinx us, Scotty. I do think Galvin will go to Para. Look, I think it's the easiest place for him to go. I think it makes a lot of sense. And, Mitchell Moses will be there for a few more years. Brown's gone. His pathway's clear. And there's some good young talent there. Joash Papali, Isaiah Aongi. Some good spine, what's his name? I think his name's Josh Smith or something. I can't remember his name, but he looks like Reed Marnie's doppelganger. They got some talent still there. The Fox on the wing, Lomax. Weidler is a knob. Half the stuff he says turns out to be false. Definitely. But he does have a better relationship with the Bulldogs now. He fucked it for a long time. Steve Folkes wouldn't talk to him. And I wouldn't either, based on that. But nice to see Sutton not the referee for once on Good Friday. Yeah, we'll get to that. Under Atkins, we're 13 wins, 14 losses. Not sure what the ledger is against the Rabbits, though, which can be a factor. But he worries me a bit is that he seems to be very egotistical with the players at times. And he does have he don't like Reed Marnie much. Or any player. But, Marnie's got a target on his back. He needs to be careful against Atkins. Scary says it'd be good to see the Dogs back to being a full team this week against Souths if Kiks is ready to return. Well, we'll look at the sides, and I've had it going down there at the bottom. Everyone that's named. If Kikau comes in, I expect that Jack Todd will make way and Curran will drop back to the bench. Or there is the potential that Daniel Saluka Fafita could drop out of the squad. Curran could go to the middle and Jack Todd retains his spot on the bench. It just depends. I've noticed the South Sydney side have named it. I saw Bennett doing this with the Dolphins, naming a side that was. He was trying to replicate the Bulldogs with a bit of the small ball stuff. I was seeing it clear as day last year towards that second half of the season. And at different times, it was looking to work. I think, good coaches see, and you have to say it, a good coach sees another coach doing something that works. They see how that would fit in within their own team. And their bench that he's named is very mobile. Havili can play hooker, can play prop, can play lock. Duncan can play on an edge, can play lock. Could probably play 5'8". Could probably put him into the centres. They've named Lewis Dodd there. Not sure if he'll make his debut. Is he there to cover Cody Walker? Right? And Davey Moali, they're only sort of middle on the bench. Not too many teams are doing that. I'm very worried about this game. Campbell Graham, back. Good defender, but has he lost a bit of rhythm? You've got players like Cody Walker, who loves the challenge of the Bulldogs. Latrell Mitt. In my opinion, this year's been all about arse more than class with the Rabbits, but they fucking scare the hell out of me because I want it so bad. We want this so bad. This day, Good Friday, this crowd, this team. We want the 2 points. We want the win. But we want to go out there and dominate this side and be rewarded with the win. I've just felt so many games where the Rabbits have won these matches but haven't been at their best. In a lot of those games, either, where I felt and we've had some terrible decisions go against us, some terrible management of the game, which has cost us big time. There's no more excuses for the Dogs. We've got the squad. We've got the system. We're on top of the ladder. We've got the fans who are going to be there. It's time we change history, recent history, and we start winning this game on Good Friday. We've overcome teams we've struggled to beat. You know, we've repaid sides that have embarrassed us and returned the favour. You know, we've beaten Eels the last 2 games. We've beaten the Knights the last 3 matches, right? The Dragons can't get near us now. They've lost the last 3. We've asserted dominance over the Titans in the last 2 matches. Now it's time for the Bunnies. And the way it's got to be done is the same formula. There has to be variation. We have to run a lot of traffic at Latrell Mitchell and get him walking. You know, and understand that if he does go quiet, his only purpose in a set will be to kick. And if we do assert dominance and we do get ahead, to understand that a player like him will then run it. And Cody will throw that pass. And so will Latrell. And sometimes they'll hit their mark, whether they're forward or not. And all of a sudden, we're fighting for our fucking existence again. A game which we've dominated, we're suddenly under the pump. It's happened a lot. Nearly every game this season, we've had to fight every inch of the way to win it. And I don't see that changing. We're going to have to earn every metre and earn every point that we get. And that's how we do it at the Bulldogs. But they've got players in their team which scare the fucking hell out of me, and they always have. Cody Walker is a phenomenal player. And Latrell Mitchell is a great rugby league player on occasion. Their young fullback is doing a wonderful job. Kaloa Matangi and Jai Arrow are really good players. Now, to me, the biggest loss that they've got is obviously Cameron Murray. But this Lachlan Hubner is doing an amazing job. Okay? They're going to try and make it a dogfight. I think it's going to, and we'll embrace that. Because as I've continually said, if the opposition team have sat there and said, all right, we're going to have a fist fight here, and we've stopped them from unleashing anything big, you know, no one's really had the answers for us and for our coach and for our strategy on the day. And we've been happy just to go toe-to-toe when we know we could just end it, pull out a gun and shoot him in the head. Sorry for the graphic shit, and I'm sorry if that's brought up anything issues with people. It's a weird analogy, I know. But what I mean is we haven't had to go to dig deep as far as attack goes to pull it out of the fire. They've stuck to the process. They've stuck to everything that they needed to do. And by doing that, have installed a lot of belief in themselves, in the systems, and in our fan base. And a lot of our fans think we're just going to go out there and smash the Rabbits this week. It is Wayne Bennett. And as much as I admire Wayne, I still believe it's more in what he says to people, not more in what he does with people. And, you know, the best, you can always defeat that. The players at the Bulldogs know they have the game plan every game, and if they follow it, to beat any team in the competition. And it's all going to be off, you know, numbers in the tackle. But we've seen straight lines run down and tackle Latrell Mitchell and him throw a late offload. And then for them to get on the outside of us, which we challenge teams to do, he's a player that can get that going from nowhere. But if we hustle and bustle him enough, and get him chasing the game, he can also make a lot of mistakes and just become, mute out there. We want to have him running a lot because that little fella Jai Gray, he'll run all day, and he's been getting belted. But you saw what we did to Keanu Kinney last year, and we did it again in round 2 this year. Now, he dealt with it so well, but look, he's injured himself. Teams just smash these little fellas. And Jai Gray's even smaller. And I think he's hard to get a target on, but the target's there. They're going to go for it. They're going to smash this kid. And if they do that, they negate him because he's one you got to worry. Look, Jack White, another really good player. I know I'm building their side up, but they're not has-beens and they're not no-names. They are fucking talented players. I still think they don't have enough depth to go far in the comp. And there's always the threat of them getting injuries because it's just been the way it's been for a long time now. Walker can't play too many games without getting injured. Same with Latrell. Same with bloody Johnston. The centre, Campbell Graham's been in the wars for ages. Totola struggles to play more than a handful in a row. They struggle. Jai Arrow's always injured. I think we can beat this side, beat them well, and don't we need it? But we're going to have to earn every second of it, every minute of it. And I trust that the Serrato is going to have variation in that kicking game. Sexton will do a lot of the kicking as well. They're going to attempt to move that side around and grind them into the wall. And I think Bennett's already preempted it with the bench that he's picked, that he needs players that can go out there and tackle for longer than 50, 60 minutes. He needs a team that's prepared to tackle for 80. And it's won him some matches, I must say. Games where they've barely hung on and got away with the 2 points. They shouldn't be on 8 points. Yet we've earned every single point we've got. I fucking hate them. I want to see us smash them so bad. Thanks, Brad, for the sticker, mate. Much appreciated, buddy. Very much helps, my friend. Thanks for coming on last week too. Where are we up to? Thank fucking God. All right, we're all happy that Sutton's not the ref. No Kiks, Jack Todd on the bench. Yeah, Kiks on the extended bench, buddy. And he may play. No, I don't like any of the refs at the end of the day. Mad Mick says Big Brew. Welcome, champion. I'm worried about Klein in video referee, not Atkins. All I know is Klein, I swear he's corrupt. He likes to bet on halftime, full time. I've said it from the time he was a young fella. I've said it. I'm like, this side, I know there's always a square up, but yeah. Especially with a team that's expected to lose, getting all the favours, and then the team expected to win, getting all the favours in the second half. And ensuring it. I don't know. Love your work in this platform. Thanks for taking the time to do this. My pleasure, Big Roo, and thank you so much for always coming on and saying hello and putting in a comment. And thanks to everyone who keeps coming on. We've got a good audience tonight, which is fantastic. Oh, God, I didn't need to hear that. Not Klein. Curran in the 11. Yeah, so Curran's he's wearing the 11, but he's playing right edge. With Preston at left edge. But if Kikau comes into the squad, Kikau goes to left edge, Preston to the right. Curran either goes to the prop to start, in which they may keep Jack Todd in the squad, or Curran will just drop to the bench and Jack Todd will drop out. That's how I think it'll roll. Yep, that's it, brother. Glad to catch you live, Bulldogs family. Glad to have you here, my friend. Can't wait for the Broncos game. I'm heading to Suncorp to watch. I'll be there, Jamie. I've got me tickets, me and my daughter. If anyone wants to catch up, let us know. We'll catch up, and I'm in the non-alcohol section because I find it's the best place to be, and it's a great view. I don't hate any of the players, and never have. He just chose to leave, and that was all good. There you go. That was a big beat up. No charges were laid. If we win this week and next week, you can almost guarantee that we'll be in the grand final. Statistically, yes. But also makes Sexton step up and be better as well. It could. And that's the whole thing. You know, it's an audition for your future. Every time you wear that jersey and go out in the field, it's an audition for your future. And every player needs to know that. If they're going to drop their lollies, then they don't have a future. They go out there and earn, you know, zeros on their salary by the work they do for the team that they're with. And they've got no other option. And this is what I say, whenever players drop off form or on the outer and commentators talk about maybe they need a new coach or a new system or a new whatever, I always go, well, I'm sure that most coaches want to see a player give 100% every time they go onto the field, even if it's, you know, that they're really upset about the club that they're with or whatever. Got to lock Critter in for life. I'm pretty sure they will, my friend. But nothing's beyond the system. We play out consistently. I'm happy, says Dave. G'day, Michael. Welcome. Sorrows at training. Go the Dogs. You're playing league still, Mike? Hope you are. And feel free to go and watch the start of this where we talk about Galvin and all that sort of stuff. John Pierre says he loves the gifts, mate. Thanking you. This Galvin issue is a worry in regards to Sexton, Woods, Cassius, Conti, even Burton. Well, it is. But I just wanted to talk about it in order for us to sort of, you know, if the club's going to do that, it might mean a player that we really love leaves our club. Worst things can happen. G'day, Kevin. Welcome to the podcast. I don't think I've seen you here before, but if I have, thank you for coming back. The speed of the game is likely to be played in the future, requires halves sitting on the bench just like hookers. We just need players and their managers buy-in. Well, there you go. Brad says, so glad Sutton is in the ref. Me too, my friend. I had a dream when Panthers dynasty finished and we won 12 comps in a row, like the Panthers are the testing product and the Dogs were the main test. Well, I fucking hope you're right, mate. Wouldn't that be something special? JD, we're not going to be unbeaten for the year. I think we're still behind Melbourne, as much as I hate saying that because I hate them, but they have an amazing team. Yeah, look, I have us in the top 4 at the moment, and I actually have West there as well, funnily enough. Right now, I have the Bulldogs with the Storm, the Broncos. I still think are a very good side. I have the Raiders and the West Tigers as the benchmark at the moment. That's it. That's how I've got it. In what I've seen. How many years does an NRL player play at the elite level? Loyalty can bring security for 5 to 6 years. Well, they're all questions that have to be asked, mate. And when you've got to do the right thing by yourself and by your family, you got to ask that question. And, you know, where does the loyalty lie? Because, look, a player can be loyal to Jake Averillo was loyal to our club. He could have gone to other clubs. You know, he stayed and was a focal point of our attack, and oppositions were all over Jake, right? Because we were that devoid of options. He could have went to the Storm. That loyalty was rewarded with a $500,000 contract at the Dolphins. It's not always rewarded at the club you're with, but I can guarantee you our club paid their part in ensuring that Jake Averillo and his manager got themselves the best contract that they could get. I have no doubt about it. It's not always going to be the case. No, but I think loyalty is important and can go both ways. Hi, Mick. Are you coming down for the Good Friday clash or the King's? I'm coming for the King's birthday, Timmy. So I'll be down there then. And we'll all be catching up and running a big muck, hopefully, and trying to get tickets. Scotty says, I'll pay for a sub, but I don't like putting my bank details online. Oh, it's all good, Scotty. No need to, mate. I don't know, mate. Like, honestly, no need. No need. You coming here and commenting and saying all that lovely stuff and contributing, that's worth everything to me. That's why I'm here. To talk with Bulldogs fans so I don't have to type all the fucking time. Drives me nuts. Come on here, have a chat, and, give you my thoughts, listen to your thoughts, read it all out. You don't have to pay for super comments. Hell, it's nice. It's appreciative. But yeah, if you don't want to don't do it. Honestly, don't bloody do it. I do really like Jack Todd. So do I, man. Fucking oath. 100%. Love Jack Todd. I think Jack Todd will do big things at the Bulldogs. And I think the other Jack will be there as well. Hard to talk about one without the other, especially when it comes to me. Scotty loves Jack too. Can never count out a team with Bennett at the helm. 100%, my friend. Anything could happen. He's the only thing about Souths that worries me. Yeah, that little Jai Gray is an absolute pocket rocket. I think he's taken more runs at fullback in 3 games than Latrell did in a season. Different types of players. But the fact that he does all the work and he's still a threat is what makes him such a good player. And he's why he's on top of the Daily M's. Scary says, if they make it a dog fight, then they play into our hands, and that's the way our dogs love it. And that's what I keep talking about. People want to go toe to toe. That was the Penrith thing. When we saw our team do that last year, I felt the first 20, 25 minutes against the Panthers, when we played them at Penrith last year, was the best team that the Panthers had come up against. And Cleary did his hammy at halftime. So we had him working hard. He was working hard in attack and defence. They were grinding us down, and he actually come up with some plays just through doing their thing, which put us under pressure, and they scored some points. Him going off in that game gave us a sniff, and we kept fighting to the end, and we got it to within, I think, 6 to 8 points. I think we lost 18-10, something like that. But it was, while it never looked like we were going to win, we were still in the fight. But that first 25 minutes of the Dogs was similar to the first match of the year against the Eels, where I just felt so much confidence in how we went about things, and I could see where we were going with that performance. And I was happy with the minutes that Sam Hughes played in that match and the way that he went about things. Really matched it with that Penrith pack. And, so we're now becoming that team. We're now that guy. We're that dude. I don't know, man. I'm trying to say things that are cool. Let's not forget Dogs were hard done by last year in this game. They really should have won. Mate, it still fucking bugs me. And in other games in previous years where I think we ended up getting flogged, but we had players sent to the sin bin for nothing, which changed the tone of the game in a side which wasn't resilient enough to deal with that sort of stuff. But last year they brought in the Fox. He was underdone. He was gun shy at the line after feeling when he started that season that he was going to handle contact better, be more of a yard getter and stuff like that. and more of a worker for the team and more of a contributor in that way. And I know that's exactly what the plan was and what he built his whole season around. And when he got smashed by Bryce Cartwright in that first game and fucked his shoulder, it set him right back in his confidence. He just needed a few games to get it going. And against Souths, when we nearly score that try and they don't send off Isaiah Tass for a professional foul, and then he's there the one that's tackling the Fox as Latrell comes in and concusses him and puts him out for the next 2 weeks. That had an effect on our season, big time. I think we go into that first 10 rounds winning 6 or 7 matches if that was dealt with properly, and it wasn't. It cost us big time, not just the loss, but the ongoing issues from that. Look, we bounced back really well, and there were a couple of games where we won, which I really think, if the game's played 100 times, we lose it more times than we win. But in saying that, we earned a lot of matches through hard work, determination, and great coaching and great execution by the team. And yeah, that was one that I'll always lament because I don't feel that we're at our best, but I felt we were the better team for the majority of that match and we should have won. And Sutton fucked it again. Brad, trust the process, trust our defense. Defense wins games. This Bulldog team has different levels of that we can go to, different gears. Let's get them. Fuck yeah, man. You just made me feel so good reading that. That was like, oh, that was almost hormonal. Souths have already lost. They just don't know it yet. Oh, I'm loving that too, Dave. Apparently Mitchell put on 10 kilos this week. There you go. G'day, P.H. With the current, I think I know that guy. Well, is that Hazim? Is that my old mate? The current intensity Dogs play it. Do you see it being a sustainable game plan given we're only 7 weeks in? Rabbit stew for everyone on Friday. Bring your dog bowl. Let's go, bro. I think the game plan has been different every week, mate. And I honestly believe they've kept a lot up their sleeve. But after a bye is always a chance of being a little bit, what's the word, clunky. And having Burton come back into the side and potentially kick out could mean we're a little bit, not as smooth or as we would want to be. But yeah, most teams that start like this go on with it and have long seasons, put it that way, in the right way. Let's just hope they turn up like they did for the Sharks game. I'm sure they're going to turn up. I don't think there's flat performances in the Dogs. What I think there can be, there'll be performances where they don't, where they might have an issue on, one play. There's always a chance at loss of concentration temporarily, which costs you points. There's also luck. You simply outcompeted for a ball. Someone puts up a bomb and it bounces a funny way. Latrell does a dropout, lands in his own goal and then rolls to the 10-metre and someone falls on it. And then, Critter gets a cramp and all of a sudden we're short down the blind. They go all the way. All this shit can happen. It doesn't necessarily mean you're flat. But you do have to expect there will be a game where they're down that 1% across the board. And that is a difference between sometimes winning and losing, or sometimes a close loss and a flogging, or sometimes, having a close win over a side that you should smash. Mate, if Western Dogs make top 4, get ready. Crowds will break records. Yeah, well, the West Tigers buy as much merch as the Bulldogs fans do. And you got 2 supporter bases. Oh, good on you, Michael, playing rugby league, as you said you were. Run amok, boys. Jack Underhill next up. It's after round 10 especially. Off you go, Scary. Thanks for joining the joining the podcast and subscribing. Really thank you for that. And I'll see you next week. They actually only lost by 4 against the Panthers last year. I think Carrera scored right at the end to make it 14-10. Well, there you go. Even closer. Also remember the blatant professional foul they didn't call. Yeah, it still pisses me off. We're a different team from last year. We are, but I think we're an improved side. But there's a lot similar in what we do. I just think we're more perfected in different areas, especially in our attack. So more reps in, more games together. As they say, practice makes perfect. I didn't mean the Dogs against Sharks. I meant the Rabbits against the Sharks. I want them to play like they did that day. Well, they were down 26-0 or something and then got it back to 26-10. If we're up 26-0, I'd fucking love to see us put another 50 on them. On track to get 70 fans on Friday. How good will break the record by a lot for the biggest regular season game ever? Next biggest would be just below 60K for a Roosters Bunnies game back in 2013. Thank you for the stats, champion. And now let's look at the team side by side. We'll go for about another 10 minutes, guys, and then I'm off. Let's go. So they've got Jai Gray, Campbell Graham, Ewan Aiken, Jack White, and Isaiah Tass, Latrell Mitchell, and Cody Walker. Now, I think there is a chance that Walker may not be ready, but it apparently is, and he's named as captain. Could be a chance that Campbell Graham moves into the centres. Ewan Aiken moves out into the forward pack, and they bring in someone to play on the wing. I don't know who this Liam LeBlanc is. Tom Fletcher, Declan Casey, and I very much doubt that Joshua Schuster will be playing rugby league in this match. I thought Sean Kepi was supposed to get suspended, so he's still there. Marmazulos, Tavita Totola, Keon Koloamatangi, Jai Arrow, and Lachlan Hubner, Dodd, Havili, Duncan, and Mawali. As I said, Mann, Tupanua, Todd, and Haywood. If Kickow comes into this side, I do expect that Josh Curran will drop back to the bench at the expense of Jack Todd, or Curran will take Daniel Saluka Fafita's spot, and Saluka Fafita will drop out of the squad. That's how I think it'll roll. It may or may not. Looking at the team stats, I will do another preview. We'll have the Dog Fathers keys to victory later in the week, where I'll elaborate more on specifics, or try to. Since the NRL era began, we're at 24 wins to 22 over the Rabbits, 1 drawn. We've won one each in the last 2. Undefeated this year for the Dogs. You know, we're scored 124 points in only 5 matches versus their 117 in 6. And we've conceded 58 in 5 to their 121 in 6 games. Both teams completing high. Both teams at a similar tackle efficiency. We're 24 points for, 11 against versus 19 points scored and 20 against for the Bunnies. We've got a faster play the ball. In teams we've played where we've had a faster play the ball at that point of the season, they have beaten us in that stat. So ours started off small as being getting bigger. The Rabbits have a rather slow play the ball, which is very, very interesting indeed. And we want to continue along keeping them pinned in that ruck. Wins at the venue, the Rabbits 57% to our 54%, and wins overall. We've won many more games than the Rabbits since 1998. Obviously, they had a real tough time after coming back into the comp. So there you go. That's the teams and what could happen. It'd be interesting to see if a player like Declan Casey gets a start and they move Graham into the centres and, as I said, Ewan Aiken out into the back row or onto the bench, which is a possibility. Haven't heard anything about any injuries to our players in the back line or anything like that. So Matty Burton will be there and it'll be business as usual, I'm sure. The great Max King, who's one of the best forwards in the comp at the moment statistically, has had a few games running downhill, though, I will say. Not saying anything's bloody easy at all. What he does is amazing for our club, and he gets better and better and better. Talk of origin, potentially. I think from the work ethic point of view and the stats he's producing, he's in the conversation. Reid Marnie, obviously got to keep that perception under control because stupid refs will take advantage of that. And Daniel Saluka-Fifita, good to see him get 35 minutes last week in a game where we, although it was a struggle to get points and that sort of stuff, we were well ahead of the opposition and had a lot more advantages than they did. Yeah, Curran, Salmon on his extension, Kurt Mann, Tupanua has been phenomenal and obviously been involved in some big matches against South, playing for the Roosters. So lots to love about our side and our squad. Blake Taff, obviously, there as backup to come into the squad if need be, and playing against his old team, they'll often line those players up. So that's the squad, that's the team, that's the wrap. First one we won 5 in a row since 38. 6 rather would be. Yep. Yeah, we won 5 in 1993. I think Scotty meant 6 in a row. We haven't done that since the 30s. But I think the start of the season is what he means, Mike. Win this Friday, yeah. Yeah, but we're over the cap. No, it's more a point that we didn't win the first 6 games, 17 of the season. We did have 17 wins in a row, though. But it's good that we're all chatting stats. Good night to everyone. Thank you to everyone who's come on tonight. It's been really bloody exhausting because there's been a lot to talk about. There's been a lot of interaction, which I'm really happy about. And I'm glad everyone answered the call and come join at 7 o'clock tonight. After I've still got to watch NRL 360. But well done, everyone. Sorry if that was a bit small, the stuff I was going through. I forgot to change it to that. But I think everyone gets the drift. I was going to show you predictions. Michael says Dogs 28, Rabbits 12. I'm going to say Dogs 36, Rabbits 2. Why not? Let's go for it. Everyone have a great week. I'll put out some more content. I know you just like me, you love to read Bulldogs content. You love to listen to it. And as I said, there could be an article come out. Hopefully it does, which I put a lot of work into surrounding this Lachlan Galvin thing. If it does, I will share it far and wide. But it probably won't. It's too much honesty in there, too much sense, and that's giving myself a rap. Michael says 42-1. There you go. Even better, mate. Even better. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's a game to be won, and we've got a team who's going to go out there and try and win it. But thanks again, guys. Well, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for the support, and go the bloody Bulldogs.